This episode of Couch Potatoes Unite! Is sponsored by Blue Bridge Games. For the games and gifts you won't find anywhere else, head to Grand Rapids, Michigan's friendliest local game store, Blue Bridge Games. Blue Bridge Games carries an extensive line of board games, card games, role-playing tabletop games, Magic the Gathering, and more. Stop into their storefront on East Fulton or shop with them online at bluebridgegames.com.
You say you want to watch a drama. You say you want to watch a comedy. Well, you can watch it with your mama. Or you can watch it with your daddy.
You'll even sit and watch it with your middle schooler. So you can come and talk around a water cooler. We're watching all day and all night.
Couch Potatoes Unite.
Whoa, whoa.
Couch Potatoes Unite.
Whoa, whoa. Couch Potatoes Unite.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! Which is based on a blog of the same name because we didn't see the need to change our name like one Jimmy Mcgill, but we'll explore that concept in the next few episodes of this series. That's foreshadowing. I am the blogger in question and the self-styled chief couch potato. My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and or checking out our website, couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, as you're bound to find some common ground or something you like. For Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and the unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. CPU! Hopes you've been following releases of brand new episodes of the podcast on Wednesdays, as well as new blog entries on some Tuesdays. And as always, we have several more new episodes on the way. Because the panels and I live lives behind our podcast, the episodes are published once per week. Subscribe to the website or the podcast via iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Amazon Music, basically wherever you get your podcasts, to stay on top of brand new episodes. Episodes already published discuss a variety of shows around the water cooler, including but not limited to Stranger Things, iZombie, The Good Place, Game of Thrones, American Horror Story, Grace and Frankie, Mr. Robot, Charmed, Riverdale, Altered Carbon, The Orville, Outlander, Fuller House, and the Arrowverse or CW-verse on the CW. Plus new episodes are in the works, including revisits for Doctor Who, The 100, The Crown, Supernatural, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and This Is Us. We'll be launching new panels covering Big Little Lies, Call the Midwife, The Animaniacs, Killing Eve, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, American Gods, Grey's Anatomy, and Cobra Kai. And because we look back at shows now past, we'll travel through time and experience all sorts of identities with Quantum Leap. We'll thank the Golden Girls for being friends. We'll cry bazinga for Big Bang Theory. We'll dive deep into the fantasy world of The Magicians. We'll navigate the witty political satire of Parks and Recreation, and we'll become psychos for Psych. By the way, did you know that CPU also from time to time goes live? We've been live from bunkers, comedy shows, Comic-Cons, and game stores. Plus, we are planning more live appearances and other cool stuff. Even in these semi-quarantine, but maybe not so quarantine times anymore. So make sure you like or follow us at our Facebook page, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, or subscribe to the website, YouTube channel, Apple iTunes channel, Stitcher Radio channel, or find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, CastBox, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. In the meantime, if you don't hear a show in this podcast format, fellow panelists and I still write reviews, and we always seek new panelists. So if you've any interest in joining the discussion, say hello by finding us at any of the outlets I've mentioned. At the very least, stop by and leave us a thumbs up, comment, or review. We like feedback, as long as you don't tend to snipe at us from hundreds of yards away like one Mike Ehrmantraut. Let's just talk this thing out in a calm manner, shall we? Today, our Breaking Better series panel is back around the virtual water cooler and continuing our Looking Back to Look Forward Breaking Better series. In fact, this is the fourth chapter in this multi-part series in which we're exploring all shows in one multi-show universe, specifically the entire universe spawned by the show Breaking Bad. Today, in our fourth discussion, we're looking forward, in a manner of speaking, to the first two seasons of the prequel series spun off of one of the most critically acclaimed and popularly watched dramas of all time, and therefore our series progressing today. In part 4 of our series, we're discussing seasons 1 and 2 of Better Call Saul, which aired from February 8th to April 6, 2015, and from February 15th to April 18, 2016, respectively, each with a total of 10 episodes. We've already discussed seasons 1 through 3 of Breaking Bad in the first episode episode of our series, seasons 4 through 5 of Breaking Bad in the second, and the sequel film El Camino in the third episode of our Breaking Better series. Each subsequent episode now in this CPU podcast universe will progress through the aforementioned prequel, the one we're talking about today, that is, Better Call Saul. In addition, if you're not already aware, you should know that from time to time, your chief couch potato and main moderator, that's me, needs a break, particularly when I think others are more passionate about the show we're discussing at the moment. Case in point, today's episode, which I am not here to moderate because I cannot possibly match the passion of today's moderator. Rather, frequent panelist Kyle takes his first ever turn at the moderating microphone for this series. He is currently our fifth most involved CPU panelist and is super ready to talk about this, his most favorite show on the air currently, possibly of all time, he'll clarify, which is why Kyle and I have split moderation duties for this Breaking Better series. In this episode, Kyle is joined by our Breaking Better cadre of panelists, namely Nick, Hillary, Julianne, Nate, and of course me, kicking back as a panelist myself. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Kyle to the moderating microphone. Take it away, Kyle.
Thanks for the introduction, Kylie. Very excited to be covering my favorite show. So let's get into it. Better Call Saul is an American crime drama television series created by Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould. Obviously, it's a spinoff, as most people know, prequel and a sequel to Breaking Bad. Set in the early to mid-2000s in Albuquerque, about 6 years before Breaking Bad, the series develops Jimmy McGill, an earnest lawyer and former con man, into a greedy criminal defense attorney known as Saul Goodman. Also shown is the moral decline of retired police detective Mike Ehrmantraut, who becomes closely affiliated with the Juarez drug cartel to support his daughter-in-law and her daughter. Jimmy and Mike's interactions remain sporadic until their respective storylines fully converge. As Kylie mentioned, the show premiered on AMC on February 8, 2015. 5 seasons. 6th season is ready to air, filming now. Should air sometime in 2022. Main cast is Bob Odenkirk, Jonathan Banks, Rhea Seehorn, Patrick Fabian, Michael Mando, and Michael McKean. Great character actor. I'd like to pass it off to the panelists and get everyone's opinion on the show. The first thing, obviously, is how did you feel when you learned Saul Goodman was getting this spinoff for Breaking Bad? I mean, it's a big world. There's lots of characters. So when you learned it was that one specifically, how did you feel? And then we're going to do the character question, ranking your interest into this series. So you can probably go say both of those at the same time. So I'm going to list the character questions, and then we'll let each panelist take it from there. You love it. You're all in to see the transformation of the criminal lawyer we've all come to know in Breaking Bad. You embrace every corner of this world, from the personal, legal, and to the criminal. After all, the ends do justify the means, like Jimmy McGill, the once and future Saul Goodman. You watch it because you're drawn to the criminal underbelly of Albuquerque. You understand its inner workings better than most. You know there are good criminals, dirty cops, and everything in between, like Mike Ehrmantraut. You watch it for the legal side. You're invested in the legal back and forth and have no interest in the morally questionable characters who exist outside the courtroom. You believe in Jimmy McGill even if you don't fully trust him to do the right thing, like Kim Wexler and Howard Hamlin. You only watch it for the Breaking Bad connections. You have little interest in the slow burn driven world of Jimmy McGill. You're here to see more of the Heisenberg side of Albuquerque, because for you it's all about the drugs and violence, like the Salamancas, mainly Tuco, Hector, Lionel, and Marco. You only watch it because you feel like you have to. You don't particularly enjoy it, but you feel like you're trapped. For better or worse, this is the world you're invested in, like Nacho Varga. You hate it. You have no respect for Slippin' Jimmy and his phony law degree. You can't comprehend why people like it and are drawn to Jimmy McGill. After all, you can't stomach watching it because of the exposure to electricity burning your skin, like Charles Chuck McGill. I'll let the panelists introduce themselves and rate the show.
I'll go first because I'm the moderator's wife.
You are?
Different disclaimer.
Woo!
What? Man, we are breaking boundaries as well.
Bad?
It depends on the day. Anyways, just kidding. So yes, I am the moderator's wife, and the other panelist who usually moderates is my sister, and I am Hillary. What's up?
Hi, Hillary. What's up?
Hey! So with that being said, I am going to say that I am Jimmy McGill, mostly because, and this is actually, it's probably grown more to that. The first time around, I was still feeling like the shell shock of Breaking Bad, but with having such a compassionate and passionate spouse who loves this show so much, it's interesting to watch it just myself and then also watch it from his perspective, because there's different takes. Of course, it helps me, just like it would anybody, to see different sides of it in the way that this character has grown from what we originally saw in Breaking Bad. And at this point, I just love the way it's nuanced, and I love the way that it still fills in the world. And just like the same reasons I love Breaking Bad, the acting's superb, the writing is great, and I just like the cinematography and look of the show. So I'm going to say I'm Jimmy.
How'd you feel when you learned Saul was getting a spinoff?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Pretty good, just because I love Breaking Bad a lot.
Are there any other characters you would have preferred? Or was Jimmy, or as we know him, Saul, the top?
Yeah, I'm still going to say that. I'm not picking multiple characters this time. Nope.
Fair enough. Welcome back, Hillary, my sister, and the moderator's wife.
I'm Nick.
Hi, Nick.
I was pretty excited when I heard Saul was getting a spinoff. I thought if they were going to spin anyone off, that felt like a really good character to do it, just because there was plenty we didn't know about him, and I also really enjoyed Bob Odenkirk, so that it felt like the perfect, this will be separate enough from Breaking Bad, it can be its own thing while still connecting to it. I can't go back in time and think as if there was somebody else I would have rather had, but this one seemed like the perfect character to spin off in retrospect. That being said, I am Jimmy McGill. I am enjoying this show easily more than I enjoyed watching Breaking Bad. I really, really like this show.
See, I had a feeling it'd be a little more up your alley.
I cannot wait to talk about it. I love Michael McKean so much that I could talk about his part in the show for at least 47 minutes.
And your time starts now.
How specific. Welcome back, specific Nick.
So my name is Julianne.
Hi, Julianne.
Hello. So when I learned that Saul was getting the spinoff, that was the character I was most excited to see too. Because Saul really introduces Walt and the characters of Breaking Bad to a lot of the other characters that progress the storyline. So of anybody, it felt like the best entry point. And also, Saul is a lawyer. A law degree was, obtained at some point. What's the story there? So I was really excited. I'm always a little skeptical when I hear that there's a spinoff of a show, especially such a great show as Breaking Bad. But I mean, these showrunners, it's in such good hands. They care about the characters. So any sort of hesitation I might have had was really just, put to the side because of the hands that it's in. And I would rate my interest in the series as Saul Goodman. I love it. I'm all in. I want to see the transformation. I really love both sides. I love seeing the criminal underbelly and everything going on with the Salamanca clan. I love, the dynamics between Chuck and Jimmy. I think it's really unique, and I feel like I haven't seen a brother story shown in this way. And I love everybody that's been introduced. So, yeah.
Welcome back, Julianne.
Thanks.
I go second to last and Kyle goes last. So.
Hey, all right. I'm Nate.
Hi, Nate.
Hey. Well, I will say I was very excited. Much like Nick, I'm a huge Odie fan. Going back to Mr. Cho and all of it. Odie's what comedy nerds call him.
Oh,
because,
okay.
That was his nickname in Second City.
Cool.
I was like, do you talk to him regularly? Or?
Is he on your speed dial?
Just a big nerd. When I heard that he was getting the spinoff, I was really excited. Obviously, the character is already a really well-formed character. So to get to see more, I was excited. I wanted to see what they were going to do with it. I mean, obviously, if it wasn't going to be good, I knew just from the way that Bob Odenkirk works, I knew if it wasn't going to be right, he wouldn't have done it. So I was very excited, to say the least. And so obviously, if you've listened to the other Breaking Bad episodes, I'm all in on the Breaking Bad universe. Most of these shows, I don't go back and rewatch them before we do these podcasts because they are actually in my brain like memories. And I can just call dialogue up randomly. It's one of those shows that just sticks with you. So I was obviously Jimmy, and it will be Jimmy McGill for the whole, until I become Saul Goodman, basically. That's all of them, right?
That's all the questions so far. Welcome back, Nate.
Thank you.
And I'm Kylie. I'm being a panelist today as opposed to being the moderator. How did I feel when I learned Saul Goodman was getting a spin-off of Breaking Bad? Well, considering that this series was already in progress when I watched Breaking Bad for the first time, I didn't have any particular feelings. I mean, bully for this. Bully for Saul, I guess. I don't know. I didn't have any feelings. I can't really answer that question. I wasn't opposed to it. That's good. How would I rate my interest in this series? I would stick myself somewhere in the void between Saul or Jimmy/Saul and Mike. If I'm being honest, the Mike side right now is the one I'm most invested in, and I think it's because I like him a lot. And which is weird because he's the more violent half of the show. But I also, I just find nuance was the word that was used. I find the level of nuance applied to the Mike character and the layers of his backstory slightly more intriguing. But I do love Michael McKean from the way back. He's been in so many things that I love and adore throughout my pop culture, loving and adoring.
Do any of them involve a singing telegram?
They do, in fact, involve. One of them involves a singing telegram. One of them involves an X-File or two. He also was on Laverne and Shirley. Let's not lose sight of that. Okay. The man has got a storied career, and I really enjoy him on this show, too. He's got great chemistry with Bob Odenkirk, or Odie, as apparently he is called, and so I am enjoying the story. I think I'll like it more, and I am liking it more. I've only watched the first 2 seasons as per my usual thing as the series progresses, but that's kind of where I'm landed. So I'm not like full on Jimmy, like apparently everybody else is going to be, because we all know what Kyle's going to answer. But I'm pretty much there almost. I find myself a little bit more drawn to the fact that Tuco and Hector Salamanca and those crazy cousins are cropping up, and Mike scrapped with them before we ever got to Breaking Bad. That's just intriguing to me. So that's my answer.
Obviously, as I'm moderating, and as Kylie hinted, I am obviously Jimmy McGill, Saul Goodman. Here's the thing, when I was watching Breaking Bad, Saul Goodman was automatically my favorite character from the moment he was introduced. I mean, I just remember telling Hillary when we were watching the finale, like, I don't care who dies, as long as Saul Goodman survives. He has to survive.
He said that.
Because my favorite characters were Saul and Mike, and so, like, once Mike had that death...
Which crushed him.
It crushed me.
Also, Hank.
Yes.
Hank crushed him, and then Mike crushed him.
So when they announced this show, and then they announced that Mike was the co-lead, I mean, I was so jazzed, and then what the show became was so different than what I thought it was going to be in my head, in a better way. It's just brilliant, and I love the show for every aspect of it, and it's just amazing, especially like all the character actors they brought in to fill in the world, because I mean, as great as Saul Goodman is, can he anchor a show just himself? And they figured out a brilliant way to do that with the supporting cast. Very much Jimmy McGill, love it so much. And since this is the first of our Better Call Saul, we have to do the star business, although since most people pick Jimmy McGill, I have a fairly good idea of how this is going to play out. But we must be thorough. So
Kylie wouldn't have it any other way.
So 5 stars. This is the official star rankings. 5 stars. I have to watch everything. Holy smokes. 4 stars. Well, it certainly seems intriguing. I'm going to keep watching, but I see possible pitfalls in the premise. 3 stars. I will give it one more try come season 2. There are things I like and things I don't. We'll see which things are allowed to flourish. 2 stars. I only watched part of season 1. Chances are I'm mainly bored, but there are some intrigue or fascination that could hold it together, no matter how unlikely. But I can't convince myself yet to keep watching. 1 star. Pass on this one, guys. It's a snoozer, not funny, not interested, not my cup of tea. There are too many options to waste time on this one. Go ahead and rate.
I'm gonna say 5 stars. Again, kind of similarly to what I already said. If this is before Breaking Bad and we know what it's leading up to, there's really no way that I can see it going downhill, honestly, but also just, again, and this is after watching it a couple times, it's another one of those shows that it's done so well, and there's such detail to it that there's things that even the second time around you miss. And with that comes an even deeper appreciation for what they're doing with these characters before Walt and Jesse are even a part of the world. And again, watching it with him, he just brings a whole different perspective to it too. So like I'll already have my thought process on how I feel about it, but then he goes into deep conversation about how he feels about the character and the different aspects that affects him and how he affects the others in his world, which then obviously leads into Breaking Bad. So for me, it is 5 stars, and I'm excited to elaborate as to why.
Nick will go, holy smokes, 5 stars.
Wow.
That's what I'll do.
He even said the holy smokes.
Holy smokes!
I would also say, yes, holy smokes. 5 stars. I have to watch everything.
Oh, absolutely. Holy smokes. 5 stars.
Why are you afraid to talk? I think that you need to watch it with Kyle.
Maybe so. I'm going to give it 4.5 stars, which is still really good, okay? And the only reason I'm rating it a half star down for now, because I know who's coming, because he's all over the cover art, and I'm very excited for when Giancarlo shows up, okay? But right now, it is kind of a slow burn, and sometimes that works really well, but then other times I get a little distracted from it. And that's just me. It's just me. Remember, I was also a little lower on Breaking Bad, and everybody plots. So just calm yourselves and go with it, okay?
What show have you given 5 stars to?
It's a really good question. I'll have to think about that. I don't remember.
You don't have an Excel sheet?
No, I'm pretty sure I gave, now this would have been in its early life, I'm pretty sure I gave The Flash 5 stars in its first and second seasons. Remember, it got worse. And then,
I know.
Yeah.
We were there.
Yeah.
Well, I can attest that this show only goes up. For me, it started at the top, but it only every single season ratchets everything you're gonna love about it.
I'm pretty sure I gave Stranger Things 5 stars too, because I was deeply impressed with that when I was. It would not normally be the kind of thing I would watch, and yet I was in love with it from moment one. That's as far as I can go off the top of my head, Nick. I'll do further research. Anyway, Kyle, continue this.
Nick, that's what you started.
Okay, so obviously, I'm 5 stars. I'm obsessed with this show. It's my favorite TV show of all time, which is saying something because it's not, along with Breaking Bad, it's not my usual genre of shows. I stick with more sci-fi, horror fare. Crime dramas usually aren't on my radar. But it's just so brilliantly executed. And, I mean, there's layers upon layers. I'm sure because I've watched this first season and second season probably 4 or 5 times by now. And I'm sure I'm going to point out things that you guys have missed. And they're going to make you probably want to go back and rewatch it. I mean, there's so many Breaking Bad side characters that pop up that you probably didn't even notice. And with each season, it just gets more and more. It's just a brilliant show. We should just start getting into it.
Okay, we will.
That was a nice way.
That's a good segue. 5 stars on the segue.
I mean, the perfect segue would have been, did you know the Constitution says you have rights? And so do I.
I love those so much. Those commercials are just so good.
They're
so good.
I think we should get into the pilot because it sets up where we are at the beginning of this world, and it has the biggest Breaking Bad crossover at the very tail end of it, which we definitely have to talk about. So when we start in the pilot, Jimmy is trying to create a name for himself. We're introduced to him in a much lower state than we know from Breaking Bad. And we want to give their thoughts on the pilot and where it brought them into this world versus what they expected from Breaking Bad.
Yeah, when it kicks off and he's got the stranger danger mustache. And he's working at a Cinnabon there. I'm just like, hey, what happened? and then it kind of then you're just like, it's a real nice wait and see because you're just like, oh, okay.
Well, you have to remember, he also predicted that that's where he was going to be.
Well, yeah.
He said if he was lucky, he'd end up managing a Cinnabon in Nebraska. And then we're introduced to Gene from Omaha.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very cheeky. Well, it's just, again, it's another thing about, like, where we were talking about the showrunners, but it's such, to me, I thought it was just a really smart way to open the show in general, because it already makes you're already, like, your wheels already turning.
Yeah.
Well, and you also have to keep in mind when they announced this show, they just said it was a prequel. So when we open, and it's very obviously after Breaking Bad, I mean, that automatically piques the mystery. So it's like nobody was expecting to see that or to get into that timeline.
And it's also a lot like the beginning of Up, because there isn't any real dialogue per se, but Bob Odenkirk tells so much by his, just like, you can tell that he's dead inside. He hates what he's doing. He's hiding because he has to hide, but like every minute he is miserable because this isn't who Jimmy is. This isn't who Saul is. He isn't Gene from Omaha. You know, he's bigger and he's got more ideas, and now he's running a Cinnabon. So I mean, just the schleppy walk that he has, where he just looks tired and beaten mentally. I mean, it sets the tone. Like, if you were nervous coming into this series, they're just like, it's gonna be okay. Stick with us. This is gonna be a ride.
I think it was interesting that they shot, and they did this for the opening of season 2 as well. They shot these scenes in their post-Breaking Bad world in black and white, which heavily invoked the beginning of season 2 of Breaking Bad, and I was half expecting to see a pink teddy bear or something. But it was just added to the oppressive depression that Saul must be feeling when it's all in like this film noir kind of style shooting. I thought that was really interesting. And then when it does, flash back into the past, it's popping bright color again, per Saul's usual way of living. So
I love that you mentioned that, because I was thinking the same thing. It's like such an interesting style choice to film a flash forward in the Better Call Saul world in black and white. Usually, I don't know, I see a lot of flashbacks in black and white. It sort of represents the past, so I just thought that was an interesting choice for this. And also, like, there is, you do see, him as Gene in Omaha in the Cinnabon, dead inside. But there is this undercurrent of tension where he can't quite settle because he's on the run. And there's also sort of a longing there as he's watching those commercials from his past of what he once was. So
hidden away, too.
Yes.
Yeah, even that part of his life is just like lock and key.
Yes, what it reminded me of was Walt in the bar when he's pretty much given up on everything, and then he sees the gray matter people on TV. And it's almost at this point where it's like, he can't be here anymore. Like, Saul might break out at any moment, but you don't know.
Yes, I'm nodding. I forget this is going to be audio.
He's used to a Facebook Live with video feeds, so...
I mean, and it shows Bob Odenkirk's acting, because he's playing the same character at so many different points in his life, and every one is it's the same character, obviously, but he plays it so differently. Like, I mean, I was half tempted with the character questions to just do versions of Jimmy. So, I mean, you have Slippin' Jimmy, Jimmy McGill, Saul Goodman, Gene from Omaha, and they each present such a different emotion that it would have worked perfectly.
That's true. Bob is kind of on fire in this character and in this series. Like, I don't know if I fully appreciated him before, certainly Breaking Bad, but at least this series as well, because it's really showing a range for him, which is not something I've necessarily seen before in his just strictly comedic presentations.
Right. Yeah. If you watch Mr. Show, you don't. This isn't the Bob Odenkirk you're expecting.
Right.
Yeah.
The depth and the range is. I mean, this is my love letter to Bob Odenkirk, by the way. Obviously, until we get to the Michael McKean part of the show, in which case that'll be a new love letter.
Hey, Bob Odie, if you're listening, tweet at us, CPU Podcast. We'd love to speak to you. You've got fans.
I mean, and he has a long career, too. I mean, he started off with, like, Conan O'Brien, like, way back, like...
Yeah, he was writing for SNL.
SNL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what were your first impressions of Jimmy McGill as we see him in the present version of Albuquerque? Because, like, how do you feel his character compares to the very flashy Saul Goodman that we know? For me, it was shell shock. Like, once you get into... I mean, just seeing him in this desperate, completely different state. How did you take away from that in the pilot?
I really enjoyed watching... Obviously, Bob Odenkirk playing the nuances, but his courtroom scenes give you a little, not a sneak peek, but kind of a teaser of what he is going to become. Like when he's defending the kids for what they did to that decapitated head. Like,
Yes.
Well, first off, yeah, like, that's already shocking right out the gate.
Well, it's just like he's trying so hard and you don't know what they did.
and he lost, but the way he's like, well, of course I lost, but what I did was the best win they were going to get.
I find it interesting, what I've noticed about Jimmy McGill is that he rehearses everything he's going to say when he has to perform. And it's interesting because a lot of the things that he rehearses come out, but not necessarily the way he intended it, particularly if a curveball is thrown his way. It's an interesting insight into the character because when we meet Saul on Breaking Bad, he's got a line for everything, and he still does as Jimmy, but there's a real lack of confidence in Jimmy that Saul didn't have or doesn't have when you see him in Breaking Bad, which is interesting.
That's true. I mean, you're seeing him at a different, in that stage of his life, it's like that's true. He is kind of rehearsed, but you're kind of learning that there's all these different layers to him. Yeah, there are those moments where he's forced to improvise because he's really good at, it's almost like, what I just think is fascinating about Jimmy, and you're seeing him a little bit different than we are as Saul Goodman, is just he's really good at understanding people. And then we start to learn about like where that started, where that came from. We see some flashbacks with his dad and obviously the story with his brother. So it's like, yeah, the development from that, because then when you go back and rewatch it a couple times, you're like, huh. I mean, it just continuously adds layers to who he becomes.
I think what I really see in Jimmy at the point that we meet him is echoed throughout the rest of this series of what we've seen so far is like how he really means well so much of the time. So much of the time he's trying to do the right thing and what he thinks is the right thing or the way to get to the right thing. And that's not really something that we saw in Saul, because at the point that we meet Saul, he's, already, the door's wide open at that point. That's what really stood out to me.
And I mean, that for me, that was it too. Saul is such a morally flexible character. And so when expecting the show to just show, okay, it's going to show how he gets into the criminal underworld, but you never expected that they were going to turn Jimmy into somebody who just always wants to do the right thing at great personal cost. And Vince Gilligan was saying that too, like when they were writing it, they just expected it to be like a funny crime show, but they realized it was a tragedy because they did not want Jimmy to become Saul. They liked the character Jimmy so much that they decided that was the hook of the show instead, and they completely changed it right before they started filming even. And I did not expect that, and it hooked me so much because, I mean, yes, I love seeing him as Saul Goodman, but I love Jimmy, and I love rooting for Jimmy, and as much as I love Saul Goodman, I do not want him to become that person. Like, I love him doing everything he can for the people in his life, even as he's like, living out of the back of a store. And knowing that he just becomes such a self-centered jerk, it's a little crushing.
Ooh, Chuck would not like you.
When do we get to talk about Chuck?
I think the thing I find myself saying the most when I'm watching the show is, oh no, Jimmy. No, Jimmy, come on, no, Jimmy. Like, because you do root for him so much, because he does mean well, and he really wants to do good. But it's like, he's just got this itch that he needs to scratch.
For him, it's the ends justify the means, rather than the other way around. So, yeah. I'm rooting for him, too. But I'm also still trying to feel out. We need to talk about Chuck before I can say more.
Maybe you should talk about it.
When it comes to me looking at Jimmy, like when he's in the room, in the bathroom, rehearsing and like trying to, get into the mindset, I don't see it as necessarily rehearsing as it's game time prep. Because throughout the whole thing, he's got this inborn ability to tell people what they want to hear, and it's not a people pleaser. He's not a con man. He's just good at making people feel good.
Yeah.
And
there's a little con man in there.
There's a little con man.
Well, because I'm just saying. I mean, I know we're only in the pilot, but we see the whole flashback scene is with a grifter and how quickly he can identify that person. So
it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's innately a little conning talent in there too.
It's so good. I mean, it's showtime to use. It's showtime. Just really, it struck a chord. It like, I loved the character and Breaking Bad, and then it was just like, all right, I'm really gonna fall in love with this character. It's just another I love Bob Odenkirk, I love this character moment, just right off the bat.
And at the end of the pilot, we get our first big crossover. Tuco Salamanca opens the door and pretty much looks directly at the screen, right at the audience, almost winking.
I was like, oh, damn.
I was like, what's Tuco doing here?
How did you feel about his introduction? Since, I mean, it's been such a long time that we've seen him. We haven't seen him since season 2 of Breaking Bad. I mean, however many years ago that was now.
My precise quote at the TV was, "Holy shit, it's Tuco. Why is he here?"
That's a 5-star reaction.
It was a close moment.
Nick, that was the best ever.
It was not. It was not the best ever.
She even had to tilt her head. She couldn't argue with that. That was great.
Shenanigans.
Anyways, I was nervous for them damn kids because I was like, you don't know what you're getting. Well, I mean, him too, Jimmy too. I'm like, you don't know what you just got yourself into.
Hopefully this is a less crazy Tuco because it's in the past.
No.
Yeah.
He's crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing you learn too, because like you see him high on meth in Breaking Bad, and you're like, okay, at some point he had to have been rational. No.
Well, we find out he was
really just incidental. He was crazy from the word go.
That's true. Well, and high from the word go, because he's already taken the crystal meth. We see scenes of him taking it because Nacho, which I keep wanting to call Taco, and I'm sure that's not okay, but Nacho makes a point of saying that at some point, like, he tried the crystal meth, and this is what happened.
And they also brought back the 2 actors that were Tuco's henchmen, the 2 very unfortunate henchmen who both end up dead in Breaking Bad. I just thought that was amazing. Like, it was like they don't even really say anything. They're just there, but it really fills in this world. And also, I don't know if you noticed, but Ignacio technically also has a crossover because he is mentioned by mouth in Breaking Bad in Saul's first episode. Does anybody remember that?
Oh, no.
When they bring him out to the desert and they have a gun on his head, he says in Spanish, "It wasn't me, it was Ignacio. Did Lalo send you?" And that's pretty much the entire plot of these first 6 seasons. Him getting embroiled with Ignacio and someone called Lalo, who we'll see in the future. So technically, Nacho is a Breaking Bad reference too.
Okay.
That's really cool.
I remember you talking about this when we were talking about the Breaking Bad. Do I remember them saying that now that you've mentioned it? Absolutely not. But I trust you.
It's already time for a rewatch. Bam.
But so it's funny because, you know, I hated those little twins with their skateboards. I hated them. But then Tuco came through and I was like, oh no, I pity them a little bit because he's going to do such bad things.
Well, plus, I mean, he wasn't necessarily high, but don't mess with his abuelita. I mean, come on, dude.
But it's like, I thought those guys deserved it, but how brutal they filmed that scene.
Oh.
The sound effects were on point.
Yeah, and then Tuco just laughing and being like, look at the bone.
Oh.
Good job, audio engineer, for simulating legs breaking.
I thought Tuco was just such a good choice for that character callback because he evokes such a strong reaction when you see him. You know something explosive is about to happen. And the second that Jimmy meets him, Jimmy doesn't know that. So you're just like, Jimmy, get out of there! Run as fast as you can!
Run! Already you see like how quickly he talks his way out of it. And I'm like, there he is, right there, right out the gate. You're already seeing his ability to... I like to see it as he's really good at reading people and knowing just the right thing to say. And it's fast, even with somebody like Tuco who is unhinged, regardless of drug usage. So I love that whole scene. It's fascinating to watch.
Well, and it's almost like, because like when Tuco's like threatening him, he's almost like pathetic about it. He doesn't step up his game until he sees that he's going to kill these 2 guys who he already doesn't like. I mean, they're already very unlikable. But it just it's one of those things. It's like he always steps up to help people, whether it helps him or not. I mean, the biggest thing obviously is with Chuck, which is like the whole central relationship of the show. Like, they can't be more different. So we definitely have to get into Chuck. Obviously, as you mentioned, Michael McKean is loved by everybody here, and he's such a polar opposite of who we know Saul Goodman is. So we definitely have to get into that and how we think he affects the transformation.
Go ahead, Nick. You're right there, man.
Well, I kind of just wanted to start with the beginning, and that's, for me, before I watched the show, I found out Michael McKean was going to be in it, and that solidified I will one day watch this show. I must. And the more I knew, because I was behind in watching Breaking Bad, so the more we got of Saul Goodman, like I could really picture what Michael Keane could do, playing a part similar to that, maybe even a mentor of help, like, because Michael McKean can do just about anything, but he's in the Christopher Guest movies. He knows how to play over the top while reining it in, and I thought that would have been, but no, he's like the opposite. He's playing, and it's just so amazing to watch. Like, he's so smug. He knows he's better than Jimmy. And then there's these moments where he is jealous of Jimmy and wishes he could be more like him, the way he talks with people. Like, we see it in that flashback with when he comes over for dinner. I can't remember the actor's name.
Ann Cusack. It's
Joan
Ann
Cusack's sister. Where he's like done. Jimmy's embarrassing him. He hates this. And she's loving it because he's a people person. He knows how to make people feel comfortable, and you get so much just from watching Michael McKean's reactions from that.
I mean, the sibling rivalry here is like off the
I wouldn't
chart.
call it rivalry because all Jimmy wants is for him to be proud of him. That's like literally his only goal in life.
Yeah, but no, that's true. But then there's in that struggle with it, like Nick was just saying, because in certain ways, he kind of detests Jimmy. He kind of respects Jimmy in a way. He's jealous of Jimmy. I just, like in the end of season 2, when there's that flashback to when their mom is dying and she's calling out for Jimmy. And then, Jimmy had just left to go, I forget what he was doing.
He was getting a sandwich for Chuck because Chuck hadn't eaten all day. But Chuck was still resentful, and the way Chuck views the world is Jimmy wasn't here for our mom, and he doesn't see the fact that Jimmy was trying to be there for him, because Chuck misinterprets everything.
And Jimmy was stealing off the till rather than trying to help Dad from not being taken advantage of by local con artists who knew he was an easy mark. By the way, Jimmy's dad was played by Raphael Savage, who, if you watched Once Upon a Time, he played Jiminy Cricket. So there you go.
I did not.
Crossover
random.
appeal.
It's random, but Magic Mirror is in the show, too.
That's correct. Giancarlo Esposito plays the Magic Mirror. Thanks, Nick.
Oh, does he really?
He really
that's
does. I mean, I can't honestly recommend Once Upon a Time to Better Call Saul / Breaking Bad fans, but if you're like such big fan of the actors, it's worth taking a sneak peek at those episodes. The Chuck relationship is fascinating to me. I don't know that I have learned to my satisfaction, and I kind of need to know how this electricity thing started. What happened?
So that's my next question of whether you think it's real or not, because he sells it so well. I mean, any other actor could look ridiculous, but you believe him as this very competent, put-together lawyer. But then he's also having like these convulsions and freaking out when he has his space blankets, and he plays both so well.
That Jimmy even says he's like that Chuck is like the smartest lawyer that he knows.
So I'm inclined to agree with the doctor played by Clea Duvall. I do not think that it is a real thing. I think it is. If I was to guess, and I am guessing in a big way, I'll admit it now, I think it is Chuck's version of trying to get attention that Jimmy comes by so easily. That's what I think it is.
So this is how I read it, and I'm in the same boat as Kylie. As as much as I wanted to keep going, I decided to stop at the season 2 finale. I have not seen past that, but I kind of see this as he's put his whole life into being a lawyer, and it's a stressful job, and he sees it as he's wasted his life, and this is something that he's mentally made up and believes, and it puts him into a panic attack the more he does it and the more he's bringing himself back to it. Him not being able to be around electricity is what's gotten him out of the stressful life. I don't know if he sees it as wasting his life, but we don't know what happened with his wife. I'm assuming he worked himself so hard and so often that she left him.
I struggle with this interpretation only because, especially in season 2, but even by the end of season 1, he gets better long enough to come out of the house and
Go to the office.
go into the office, and as long as he has his space blanket security shell under his suit, he's able to function at least for short bursts at a time. Now, I think when he is faced with a mistake, so taking your theory and kind of twisting it a little bit, this gets into season 2, when Jimmy alters the court filing documents for the Mesa Verde account and they're before the regulatory board, he starts to have a major episode that pretty much cripples him into a hospital stay, where all the electricity thingy is crashing down on him because they're flat out saying this was improperly filed, we don't have another hearing date. He's watching himself fail in front of the board. So I think that
flailing. And then Ernesto in the copy place while he's trying to and he's basically right, but he's like so on he's trying to get Jimmy in his act that Ernesto's like, no, it was me. I just called him. And so, yeah, it's like a series of events of, okay, I'm messing this up, and Jimmy looks good and I don't.
Well, a lot of times, Jimmy never really reveals to Chuck how he doesn't believe in this illness. Like, he always validates Chuck's feelings about the illness that he may or may not have. I don't know. I just think that's interesting. I like how they film Chuck's experiences with the electromagnetic issues. It's very like buzzy and the lights are flashing. And one of my like favorite sort of funny moments of this is when he steals his neighbor's paper. And like, he's seeing all the lights and he's feeling everything. And then there's just that moment where it's just the neighbor observing Chuck stealing the paper and everything is quiet and silent. Yeah. And it's this quick little moment, but it's things like that where I'm like, this might be Chuck's reality, but this isn't reality.
For me, the most important scene is the second to last episode of the first season when you finally, after they've been working together on this Sandpiper crossing deal, and it seems like everything's going great, Jimmy's finally being a lawyer with his brother, and then when he finds out that Chuck is the one holding him back, and Chuck has that diatribe, and you learn just how much he hates Jimmy. Slipping Jimmy with a law degree like a chimp with a machine gun. For me, that's the most important scene of the series. Like, literally, he becomes Saul Goodman, which is literally the nightmare scenario. I always interpret, when I saw it, I interpreted it as, when Jimmy got that law degree, something Chuck, everybody loves Jimmy. Jimmy has everything that Chuck wants, but Chuck is a lawyer. That is his one bastion in his life. And for Jimmy to get a law degree quickly and easily, and how much it set him off, I always pictured that being the source of his condition and the starting point.
And then he ends up at Hamlin Mcgill.
And everyone at Hamlin loves him, even Howard secretly. The first season sets him up as a villain, but we learn that he actually likes Jimmy, and he gave him a nickname, and he would have hired him. So for me, like, Saul Goodman is a direct creation of Chuck's. He's Chuck's nightmare. He's absolutely the end result that Chuck did not want, but is pushing Jimmy into.
That's why I go back to being more of an attention-grabbing jealousy thing. Because all of those scenes put together, and you're right, that scene where Chuck unleashes on him and all of a sudden betrays these feelings that you sort of guess that he wasn't very happy with Jimmy up until that point, but then it comes out in this vitriol, like, spitting forth, and you're like, holy crap, this is even deeper than you thought it was up until this point. That's why I feel like the electromagnetic thing, because if you notice also, every time he has an episode, Jimmy is right there to take care of him. He knows that's what's going to happen. He actually uses that as a manipulation tactic to close out season 2. So that's why I think it's very much put on, and it's very much about getting attention, and also that sort of, it's a cry because of the jealousy and all that other stuff that Kyle just talked about.
But then it ends up being ironic, because then it puts him in a position, because Jimmy doesn't want to have him committed, but then he ends up being like his co-guardian thing. which is just
the most insulting thing.
It like backfires on him totally.
Also, by the way, when he's in that hospital, there's another Breaking Bad cameo. The nurse that's telling Jimmy not to turn everything off is the same nurse that wouldn't let Jesse Pinkman in to see Brock.
Oh, yeah, I did not remember that either.
I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, like, season 2 has the investment banker who Walt blows up his car. Jimmy and Kim go out to the bar and con him out of lots of money of the tequila.
Oh, that guy looked familiar. I was like, I don't remember where I saw this guy. But I did enjoy them conning him out of the expensive, however much per shot tequila. That was pretty...
That was hilarious.
It was also really interesting to me that Kim just slipped right into that Slippin' Jimmy co-pilot role with little to no hesitation. There must be more backstory coming on her because...
It's breaking... She's Breaking Bad. I mean, it's literally it's the opportunity to do the things that you would never dream of doing. She's given this opportunity to shuck the responsibilities that she's put on herself as becoming a lawyer and working so hard to do something just off the wall, crazy and fun and essentially victimless is how it's viewed. It's like, yeah, we're scamming a scammer.
Yeah. Oh, I get all that. She just does it with, like, no hesitation and complete smoothness.
Right. So it's like this whole time. I agree with Kylie because, like, the whole time you're like, oh, you know, you already know that Jimmy has this ability to read people, and then sometimes he uses it to manipulate certain situations. Most of the time, though, he's doing it for better reasons. Then all of a sudden, she, who even knows that she says he cuts corners, he does this, he does that. And she's been very straight, at least from what we see. We've seen her being very straight and narrow and being very, you know, trying to impress HHM and everybody there. And then all of a sudden she's like, hey, Jimmy, we got a live one here. How quick can you get here?
You also have to remember, though, at that point, she hit the same point Jimmy is in the first episode, where he's doing everything right, but doors are closing in his face.
Nothing's happening.
Yes.
Doing the right thing. Nice guys
isn't working.
Finish last.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what do we think about Kim and the new characters, like Kim and Howard and AJ, and like even Nacho, the ones that weren't in Breaking Bad?
I think Howard reminds me of a principal in an 80s teen movie.
Are you saying he's Richard Vernon?
He's very stiff. He's very, you know what I mean? He's got a Gordon Gekko look to him.
I didn't hear you. You kind of broke up, Kylie.
I said, are you saying that Howard is Richard Vernon from the 80s classic, The Breakfast Club?
Yes.
With his Ham Lindigo blue suit.
Yes, I love that.
It is. I mean, when he came out, man, I just got that Gordon Gekko vibe. That, you know, greed is good. I mean, he's got the man tan, the perfect hair, the manicured nails. I mean, he's looking like
what
looks
does
like
a man tan mean? What does that even mean?
He's almost the template that Saul uses, but Saul sees him through a different lens. Saul sees him through the ridiculous lens that we see and then ups it by like 2 more factors.
Exactly.
But I still feel like you're supposed to not like him, but really he's maybe not as bad as we think he is.
Exactly.
That's what I was gonna say too. Like Howard.
And can I just say too, Kyle, I haven't actually watched as much of it as Kyle. I'm not as far into it. I swear. So I'm really just guessing. I don't know.
Kyle just did the excellent Mr. Burns gesture.
Well, I'm just like, all these characters have more depth. So even the first season's like Howard, you spend the whole first season thinking he's kind of the nemesis to Jimmy. Then you learn at the end that he's not. And then season 2, you learn he's the nemesis for Kim. But I mean, like, every one of these characters, they have depths and layers. There is no really good or bad people, except for Chuck. Screw Chuck, he's a jerk.
Tell us how you really feel.
But anyways, we're just in the setup stages of life in Better Call Saul.
And we haven't even started talking about Mike and his. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother side of the coin.
I like Nacho.
Nacho's all right.
Nacho's interesting. I keep wanting to call him Taco. He's playing both. I know. Maybe I just want tacos more. He keeps playing...
Monday, it's not Tuesday.
Oh, okay. He keeps playing both sides, which I think is very interesting, but also I feel like this is going to get him into trouble. He's going to get found out at some point, if not by Tuco, crazy Tuco, who's crazy but smart, but by Hector, who is talking and upright. So I actually have a prediction, and I'm going to put it out in this first episode, and then I'll be proven wrong or not. Is it Mike that puts him in the wheelchair? This is my prediction.
Your prediction was a question.
Oh, because I like to ask it. Oh, and Kim, I like Kim better. I wasn't sure what to make of her at first, but she's like an onion. She's like the same onion that Saul is. They're clearly like two sides of a very similar coin. I just don't know where she is going to end up falling in the end. I mean, right now at the end of season 2, they've decided to share expenses and open 2 law offices in the same building. That should be fairly interesting, but we haven't gotten that far because I imagine that's season 3, so...
Here's my biggest foreshadowing thing with Kim. There is a point where she's interviewing at that other law firm because they give her a deal. They're like, you can work here for 2 years and then we'll look at making you a partner. And then he asks her straight up.
Dennis Boutsakakis.
Yeah. He asked her straight up, like, why, what made you decide to do this? And then she goes on this, it's honestly probably the most that we've heard about her thus far. And she kind of goes on a speech about how she just knows that she wants more. And then later there's this little blip, and I didn't even notice this the first time that I watched the second season. But when Jimmy has the concept of them opening up their practice together, and then he hands her that rough draft of a business card, and then she's in the middle of trying to figure things out at HHM, and she's going through all that ringamaroo, and then she's standing outside kind of smoking and looking down at the card, and then she rips it in half and looks at just her name. So that to me it has to be foreshadowing, but I don't know. I haven't watched as far, so I really don't know.
Feeling when she says she wants more, she's not talking about a bigger law firm. She doesn't want to be under anybody else. She wants to do the whole damn show.
Yes.
And the thing of it is you learn even through season 2, you can see that she's got the goods. She's a smart, competent. She can do it. But you get that feeling that there is something, what's everybody's flawed, so you wonder what is her flaw? When is that shoe gonna drop that you see and you're just like, oh, that's your
that shoe that's gonna drop, is that what causes her to be absent from the Breaking Bad universe? That's what I think of when I see Kim as I'm actually concerned for her, concerned that something really bad is going to happen to her and that she will be in danger because of Jimmy's progression into the character of Saul Goodman. That's kind of what my fear for her is. Same with Nacho. I mean, Nacho is so entrenched in that world of the Salamancas that tension has to break at some point, right? He's so involved with all of those characters and we don't see him. Something is also going to happen to Nacho. So I worry for both of their safety.
Which is fair, because it almost seems like Saul Goodman cannot exist if Kim Wexler exists. She is such an antithesis of everything Saul Goodman stands for.
And
he cares so much about what she sees him as.
She grounds him. She gets him to see in some ways that he does take questionable shortcuts, and at some point he does say to her, I gotta be me, and that's how he comes up with the idea of their 2 separate firms sharing the same space. But she still provides that grounding influence and makes him at least stop and ask himself the questions should I be doing this? Before he says, screw it, I'm gonna do this. So I agree. I think something is going to happen to her. I don't know what that's going to be. But I also think, Nate, are you inferring that Kim is kind of overly estimates herself in a way? Was that where you were going with that? Or what were you saying was her flaw?
Well, I will have to see.
You referred to it. You need to predict.
What I'm doing is I'm giving a nug. I'm making you, now I gotta know.
Well, I think it like what Julianne she just said she's worried for her safety, but then I could also see it as, how is she going to screw, how are these people screwing Jimmy into a point where he's going to become Saul Goodman? He's going to become the worst version of himself.
Or how does Jimmy push these people away while he's becoming Saul Goodman? It's not always that he has to do he has to hurt them. He can just be him, and some people, at one point, they say, enough,
well,
can't be in this world.
Yeah, that's the central question, because Chuck is a jerk, but he's also not entirely wrong about his brother.
Right.
I think he's wrong in how he interprets things, because,
sure,
he thinks their parents' business went under because Jimmy was stealing things. Jimmy was taking coins. Jimmy's dad's business went under because his dad was terrible and gave money away to a lot of people and didn't write it down. But Chuck doesn't see that. He's so laser focused on Jimmy is the cause of every problem in my life.
No, I agree. I think Chuck is teetotaled into an exaggerated place.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Jimmy does do things that are questionable things, like transposing the number to screw his brother over so that he can make a grand romantic gesture to Kim because he thought Kim got screwed off by his brother and HHM.
Well, she did. Chuck was going to ruin her entire life just because she associates with Jimmy.
I understand that, but he defrauded legal documents. That is, in fact, what he did.
Right.
Well,
That's what makes it so complicated. That's what makes it so tough. And I do root for Jimmy, but I also he does cause people pain.
Yeah, he does put himself in that place a little bit, even though as we've already said, his intention is to maybe do what he thinks the best of the situation is. But it's hard to obviously argue what Chuck is totally saying when there are instances where he's not wrong, and that's what Kylie's saying.
Right. And in some ways, Jimmy is the very personification of the road to hell is paved with. So
yeah, I will defend Jimmy a little bit more too, because we keep saying he cuts corners, and I think it's more he is trying to right what he thinks is the injustice inherent in the system. So the things, whether it's legal or not, he's looking at morality, and he's getting pushed back. We know, they even outright say it. It's not even subtext, that he works hard. He's going to tape these pieces of paper together. He's going to Xerox those numbers in the transposed order. He is diligent, and he'll work hard all the way down to getting his law degree. He worked hard for that.
I only use the phrase cuts corners because that's what Kim actually says.
Yeah.
But
it's funny. It's like his little workarounds almost require him to do so much more work and take so much more out of his life and his personal self than just being a straight up regular lawyer. But yeah, like Nick said, he's overcoming what he sees as failures in the system. He's like, I know I can get it done this way. I have to do it.
And when he does work hard, when he got his law degree, it was his lawyer his brother behind the scenes saying, "No, don't hire him." He's not.
Yeah, so he's always had these additional hurdles that he's had to jump through anyway, regardless.
So as much as I do think there is the aspect of this grand romantic gesture for Kim when he does defraud those documents, it's also the stupid privileged law firm and my brother taking, she had to work so hard while she was working extra hours because she was being punished. I think in his mind, it doesn't matter what's legal or not because a lot of the people following the law are immoral.
You're all absolutely correct, and I'm not making any argument contrary to that. I'm just saying he does some things that are not technically correct. Kyle,
right.
Nick, and Nate.
So does Mike, but we love him.
Well, I see.
I do not love Jimmy.
What Kylie's saying is she hates Jimmy.
I did not say that. Hashtag no.
4.5
Hashtag change to 5 stars.
Hashtag
I will not be bullied. I will not be bullied.
This is a democracy.
My feelings are valid. Moderate, Kyle. Do something.
So would you rather have the show just be HHM and just be a legal drama?
This is not how you're doing it. Let's talk about money.
And then to Better Call Saul Goodman, and you're nitpicking him slightly artistically licensing some legal documents.
She's not nitpicking. All right, I'm going to moderate this. Let's talk about Mike.
Yeah, let's talk about Mike.
Yeah, I forgot about him.
Well, he's in the show.
I think it's great that he's in the show, and I love every scene that Bob and Jonathan have together. Every single one.
What about his backstory we finally got?
The beginning, just he's sitting in that little booth with his AM radio, reading his paper.
And he's so cool doing it.
I know, he's such a badass. Everything he does is so badass. The whole thing where, I know you asked a question, I'll come back to that, Kyle. The whole thing when he sets up his house to catch the guys that Hector sends to try to take a hit out on him is so badass. Which I'm not surprised about. So in answer to your question about his backstory, it's heart-crushing but not surprising. In some ways you kind of...
Had to predict something like that.
Yeah, when you meet Mike in Breaking Bad, you figure that he had to be broken at some point himself. Yeah. So to find out that he was part of this precinct corruption, if you will, and, was aware of the two that, he took out in revenge, the two that killed his son. And, all of that I think is really, really good. It sheds a lot of light on him in so many ways, and none of it is really surprising. But I also think he's also determined to do the right thing. He just goes to far more extreme places to do it, including talking to Bobby from Supernatural to get his guns. Jim Beaver plays the gun salesman.
Larson. His name is Larson.
Larson. There you go.
It's interesting because these shows are so well written and every detail is thought out and they paint themselves in corners and they only get out of them. It means that Walter White, Mike, and Jimmy also have to be very intelligent and able to see the different paths that any situation can lead down, it's similar that those three characters are very different, but they have to have that one characteristic that makes these shows worth watching and rewatching for the nuance.
You might as well lump Gus in there too, because he's the same as the three of them. We just haven't met him yet here.
When you see these characters though, and in these shows, it's almost like what are writers on other shows doing? Just throwing this is good enough.
Yes, we've discussed this in many of our podcasts.
WDC show.
Also, like Mike's monologue when he's telling her about how Maddie died. Because Mike, he could just be a tough guy caricature, but the Jonathan Banks acting in that scene when you see him breaking as he's telling the story, it was amazing. And for me, it added depth when he's talking about how he brought his son down into the dirt. It added all the more to the scenes when you watch him with Jesse. When every scene he's in with Jesse, he doesn't like Jesse, but every scene he's with Jesse, he's trying to get him to leave that lifestyle. And he has to see, something. That he's trying to fix the hole that he tore. And okay, this kid's young, he has potential. His son was young and had potential, and he was indirectly responsible for his death. And him, and especially when we got to El Camino after learning this backstory, and then going back and getting another Mike scene where he's essentially telling him to start over in Alaska and how he can be any man he wants to be. It's almost like what he would have said to his son about walking away from being in that dirty precinct.
Yeah, I'll promise you to rewatch Breaking Bad after I'm done with Better Call Saul so that we can take all of these parallels and reanalyze them in the Breaking Bad. Because I always thought there was an element of, you're right, he didn't really like Jesse per se, but at the same time, there were moments when you could almost detect he was treating him like a son, even before El Camino. And
yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like when Walt was pushing him around when they were doing the pest control.
Mm-hmm.
And when he stuck up for him with Gus even.
Yeah, exactly. So
the kid does what he wants.
They are bad memories.
I think, too, with, Mike's backstory, when we see Mike in Breaking Bad, a lot of the motivation that he has is to make money for his granddaughter.
Yep.
And, I think, if we didn't have any more story on that would be enough, but it just further deepens, Mike just has this immense guilt, and now he feels, responsible for taking care of his granddaughter because of what happened with his son. It just fleshes that out in such a way that is just so heartbreaking. And he's just so good in that scene. And also really explains why he knows all these in and outs and nuances of security and casing a place. And, it's because of that.
Yeah.
Like, we knew he had a police background, but...
Yeah, like, he already knows how these criminal minds work. And so because he's trying to help, essentially, his daughter-in-law and his granddaughter, he starts getting more involved with the cartel and the Salamancas, but he already knows how they're going to play things out. And that's where a lot of it...
He is
a badass.
5 steps ahead, He's 5 steps ahead of everybody all the time.
And then you realize that's why he knew so much when you met him in Breaking Bad about the stupid cartel, because it's like...
even just... I was just gonna say the scene where he's like takes out their truck and he's got the ski mask on, and then he takes out the truck and you're like, he's so cool. Like, he knows the money's in the tires. He brings out like his electric like knifey thing, and then Nacho gets pissed at him later, like, what are you doing? Are you sure you didn't get you sure no one recognized you, saw your face, heard your voice, anything? And he's like, no, like, just in that mic voice. Didn't happen.
Yep.
And Nacho's getting worked up, and he says, "You need to calm yourself."
I know.
And he does.
My favorite scene from Mike is in season 1, and it's when he's with that really bad drug dealer, and he's in the car, and he has a little monologue where he says, "For better or worse, you're a criminal now. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. I've known good criminals, honorable thieves, bad cops." And he has this whole monologue. And for me, he is literally summing up the world of Breaking Bad.
For sure.
Like, if ever there was a summary like that fits it, it was that moment.
I felt like that guy was to Mike Ehrmantraut as Gail Whitaker was to Walter White.
Gail Whitaker?
That's what I meant. That guy, except with...
You mean Forrest Whitaker?
Oh, yeah. That guy. Not that guy. Only with really poor taste in vehicles. My God.
That guy he's such a great character actor who's in What We Do in the Shadows now. He could almost be the same character.
Yeah, he could.
I gotta say the payoff, because like you see him and he's annoying in the first season, and then kind of a humiliating payoff in season 2 where Jimmy makes him make the squat cobbler video.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But I just have Mike's like, I'm not going anywhere with you in that thing.
Yeah.
And then Nacho saying it looks like a school bus for
pimps, like
for 6-year-old pimps or whatever.
Yeah, it's like hilarious. Because I was like, if he brings up those baseball cards one more time, like, oh my God.
So what do we think about Jimmy joining Davis in Maine and trying to go straight? Did you expect that to last long, or did you expect it to go down as quickly as it did?
That was a cup of coffee, man.
I mean, we got to see Ed Begley Jr. as one of the lead partners in that firm.
He looks good.
He looks okay. Yeah, he's aged all right.
Looks like he just stepped off St. Elsewhere's set.
Well, I don't know about that, but okay.
He looks so good.
I just liked it because it showed Jimmy starting to, like, touches the saw, like, when he's trying to get out of it, and then he immediately starts to wear the colorful suits and...
Yeah, the Kings of Comedy suits.
Yes, yes! And then he's like, he buys the friggin', like, bagpipes to piss him off, and...
Yeah, I didn't expect it to last, but I wasn't I expected it not to last, but I wasn't expecting him to full-on tank it the way he did.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
He just really wanted his bonus, man.
I guess.
Well, and it explains how he got his Saul Goodman props. Because he gets his Coca-Cola desk, his oversized desk from Breaking Bad. He gets his entire wardrobe. Another important thing at the end of season 1, he got Marco's ring.
Yep, I did.
Which, in Breaking Bad, whenever he's talking to criminals or conning somebody, he plays with that ring. And so now you know why he's thinking of his friend Marco and the cons and just being in the moment.
The big scores.
So many little details.
I mean, the very first character image of Saul Goodman is him standing in the desert playing with that ring. And it was just a ring that Bob Odenkirk liked. And then they gave it its whole backstory.
Symbolism.
But yeah, and then when he's at Davis and Maine, he gets his wardrobe. So even though it's a slow build, you don't even realize you're seeing him take these steps.
Kyle has watched special features and shit.
Of course. I would expect nothing less. The ring was not lost on me because they very much made. I mean, Spencer, our panelist Spencer, always says they show it for a reason, and the ring had such a main focus in Marco's funeral while he was talking on the phone to Kim about the Davis and Maine job. He kept playing with the ring for the very first time, and I was like, oh, there's that ring. So, but it was
which adds to Breaking Bad, because now we know he plays with the ring when he's conning somebody. So even though he seems like he's on the level with Walt and Jesse, is there another layer there that we don't know?
Oh yeah, was he skimming?
Probably.
We don't know.
I mean, we can bet. it's likely.
You knew that the Davis and Maine job was not going to end well for him when he could barely even take the job to begin with.
Right, exactly.
But that montage of him destroying that job is fantastic. And there are so many montages in this show, and a lot of them are when Jimmy is in like this flow state of conning. There's that montage with Marco when he goes back and, you know, he and Marco are doing those cons, and there's that whole scene of them conning people.
Oh, yeah.
When he's like getting the suits for Davis and Maine, and, you know, the issue with the not the coffee maker, the juicer, like loud in the kitchen, like it's this whole montage, and it's always when he's in this flow state of conning that happens. I think it's really great.
Yeah.
And you just reminded me, we also got to see a moment mentioned in Breaking Bad where he talks about how he once convinced a woman that he was Kevin Costner.
Yes!
Not because she believed it, but because he believed it. And then in the Marco episode, and she's like, he's not Kevin Costner.
Yes, I love that.
That one wasn't lost
So
on
good.
me either. I remembered that one. I was like, oh.
He's so smooth.
I do think that I also didn't think Davis and Maine was going to last, but I do think it was a necessary, not just for him to acquire, you know, the desk and the wardrobe, but I think to follow his journey to the Breaking Bad ending that we know where he ends up, I think we needed to see him try to fit in, and how it couldn't work. And that last scene we get with Ed Begley Jr. and him as he's leaving, you know, I think you're a good guy. I think you're an a-hole. Like,
Yeah, he's like, for what it's worth, I do think you're a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right, though, because I agree. I think we had to see this. I mean, I think he believes in the Sandpiper case because he's the one who discovered it. He cares. He cares, and he is practicing his elder law with every level of sincerity. Like, he is trying to help the
and
older
it's not,
persons.
he doesn't just, yes, he's got to be himself, but Davis and Maine wasn't wrong. He should have cleared the commercial with them. But the commercial did what it was supposed to do. Like, it was a really good example of, this is why he can't stay here. He can't do what he needs to do.
He's more about asking forgiveness than permission.
Yeah.
That's how I live my life.
Are you saying you're Saul?
Yes. Yeah, I pretended to like Walter White, but many times during the show,
No
while
one
I'm watching
believes
Jimmy
this.
make those mistakes, I was like,
With your effusive praise of Walter White, and now
I was going to say, like, now you're
episodes.
saying you're Saul Goodman, but then you were like, Walter White is my, like, role model.
He's a Mitch, was what you said.
What you didn't realize is he would play with his hat every time he was playing.
That's your ring, I guess.
Walter White is a great entrepreneur.
Sure.
And has that can-do American spirit.
Well, of course.
But literally, with Jimmy, I just, like, many times I've been like, I'd be in the same boat right now.
And he is.
But then that's the thing, like, you're frustrated with him because the commercial worked and stuff, but at the same time, he knew they were going to react like that. So he acts indignant when they do react like that. But he by not telling Kim that it wasn't approved, he literally in the back of his subconscious, he knew it was going to go bad. But he has these hopes for this world that was just like, okay, they'll see it from my point of view, and nobody sees it from his point of view except for sometimes Kim.
And he always walks the line where he knows where the safety net is, whether it's secure or not, where he mentioned the commercial to Ed Begley Jr.
Yeah.
He does the bare minimum.
And they ended up using that commercial. They just put their dumb background back on it.
Right?
Yeah.
The sad eyes looking up at the camera. Where is my money? And it's
he has a concise and emotion-evoking vision for the things he directs.
Yeah.
He just doesn't have the money or the backing.
Which really highlights his really garish commercials is Saul Goodman.
Yes.
Like, he can do better, but he knows what his clientele wants to see.
Yeah, that commercial could literally be shown while you're watching Maury, and you would not think anything of it.
Right.
It'd be, like, you'd see that one guy who yells at you because you're sitting on the couch and you need to go to that online school, and then it would be a Saul Goodman commercial, and it would just be seamless.
Oh my god.
The results say you're the father?
Yeah, I see you there sitting on the couch. Call this number below. Go to school. Get a degree in TV VCR repair or something.
Sure.
Those are the commercials. That's
Sounds like the commercial for the University of Samoa where he got his law degree.
Yeah.
American
Exactly.
Samoa. It's the one owned by us, American Samoa.
They make a great cookie.
And we also got to see the cousins.
Same thing.
Hector and the scary, freaky
I was
cousin.
saying, we also got the cousins in season 2, which the moment I saw them like over Kaylee Ehrmantraut, I'm like, okay, he's gonna put him in the wheelchair. He said, like, there's almost no way Mike's gonna let this stand. What did you guys think? I mean, there's such a huge force in Breaking Bad.
Scary. I was scared. I was like, oh crap, they're here.
When they're like on the roof and they're like,
I know.
that thing.
Such
Oh, sorry, they can't see me do that. They do the pointing gun thing. That's his granddaughter.
They're the worst. They're
Scary
sociopaths.
Matrix twins. Yes.
They're no mercy. They're absolutely fearless. You know something bad is going to happen when they're around. I mean,
really taught how to be. They were definitely trained to be some severe sociopaths.
They
I mean,
no
from
concept of right or wrong.
From their perspective, they don't know what Mike is or what he's capable of. As far as they know, he's just an old guy that Tuco beat up. And, like, they go full force on the intimidation, just having no idea what they're unleashing. But it just goes to show you, like, how scary even Hector is, because this is the first time we're really seeing him at his full potential. I mean, we're just so used to him with his little bell and dinging.
In Breaking Bad, because, you know, that's the reason Gus is Gus.
Yeah.
But, you know, by that point, like, you know, fourth dimensionally speaking, you're just like, oh, he's Mexican Mafia, whatever, you know, he's going to do bad things. But yes, at this point, you realize, like, how the reputation that he has, we get to watch that reputation get built. And that's what's intimidating.
I don't know what the actor's name is that plays Hector. But, like, I believe that he just is Hector. You know, like, I believe that he's out there. I believe that he is running the game. He is so
like,
scary.
dude, you are the cartel?
Yes, like, he is just so scary. And, I mean, he will just drop a look like that, and they just fall in line. All the Salamancas, that crew, that family, there's a lot that they need to unpack. Clearly, because they are all absolutely fearless and ruthless.
But Mike is totally unfazed. And so there's that whole scene in the diner where basically Hector's trying to tell Mike, you need to change your story and tell him the gun was yours and not Tuco's. And Mike's like, asks for $50,000 instead of $5,000 or whatever. And Hector says in Spanish then in English, see, he's got the balls on this one, you know. They're totally like, they don't intimidate each other. Neither one of them can be intimidated, which is crazy just to think about.
Well, to me, it says something that Hector ends up respecting that in that moment. Hector, who is like, I mean, we saw in the flashbacks with Gus, I mean, he takes, he doesn't, he's no mercy. Like, you're done. But, like, with Mike, he's like, yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, take your $50,000. Do the thing.
Yeah, also at this point, like, $50,000, what's that to him? They're at the top of their game.
Says. Mike actually says that. I need it more than you do. And I was like...
I mean, also it shows what a black hole Walter White is. You have this whole world that exists, and you're seeing it living and breathing. And you realize every single character in the scene is dead because of Walter White.
Yeah, Walter comes in, and he's such a good entrepreneur.
Takes things up, changes the game, baby.
He just biffs everything right up.
Yes, he does.
Which is pretty much what Mike tells him in every scene they share.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's rules, Walter.
He drops a bomb on the whole thing.
Literally.
A plane.
Yeah, the plane.
We're so smart.
The tiny bomb that he drops that blows out the windows.
That is correct.
Oh, yeah. good point.
Oh, the fulminated mercury?
Yes.
That's right. I forgot about all his chemicaling. Stupid bomb.
It taught us so much.
I mean, and once you're a fan of Breaking Bad, once you get the Salamancas, you know who's coming behind them. And that's how season 2 ends. A simple little note that just says don't. And who is that concise?
Should we ask Kylie a usual moderating question? What are your predictions for season 3?
We're gonna see Gus. I'm very excited because I like him. I don't know why I like him so much. I think that's
He's such a good character. You're not supposed to like him, but he's so good that you do.
He's so good. And I know, Nate, this is no disrespect to your love for Walter, but my favorite characters coming out of Breaking Bad are, for me, I like Saul a lot, but Mike and Gus are my two. So I'm very excited
Mike is
for him
phenomenal.
to come in.
And Gus is like Batman villain caliber.
You've said that.
I know, because I love Batman.
You're in good company.
Because you should.
I mean, and once you put Gus with Mike, it's pure gold. They're both methodical, but they're just so different. Mm-hmm. And so, by Breaking Bad, Mike is his right hand. So we had to get to that point. It's unavoidable. That relationship is like cement. And so you know that they're on this collision course. And then once you see that note...
Mike and Gus aren't really, and they're not that different because they're all about business.
Yeah.
They everything is run with, nobody's...
Right, so you can see how their relationship's probably going to form.
They're taking their piece of the market share and then slowly taking a little bit more. Whereas Walter...
With professionalism.
He did that cartoon bit where he slices a piece of cake and then takes the whole cake away. That was the problem.
That was very visual. Thanks, Nate.
Thank you. Thank you. It's going to go over huge when this audio drops.
Hashtag the cake is huge. That's our secret hashtag for the episode.
It's actually funny, too, because they said that the title of each episode, the first letter, would rearrange into a message at the finale. And then it does it, and it says Fring's back. And... I was just so excited. And then we had to wait a year and a half for the next season.
Kyle did, yes.
Yeah, Kyle did.
Kyle was the only one.
No.
Binge watch the entire series up.
I was going to say, this is the longest 6-year time span because then they do almost 2 years between seasons and it kills me. Especially I was happy with El Camino. Everyone thought they were filming the next season of Breaking Bad, and then they're like, oh, whoopsie, Better Call Saul. And they're like, whoopsies, that's going to take another year because we made a secret movie.
Yeah.
So part of me was like, yay, but then I was like, I want Saul.
You do?
We can't play the drinking game now because everybody would be dead.
Yeah.
I was already drinking before this started, so yeah. I'd be in the hospital, yo.
Nick very casually brings over a glass. What's in that glass, Nick?
My vintage Muppets glass.
Awesome!
Oh,
that is not
that's
in any
pretty
way
cool.
related to Saul, but I love the
very
glass.
cool.
I can't remember if it was
There's so much show and tell in this episode that people can't see.
Well, we're describing it. We're describing
I have that
it.
same glass. Yeah.
It's part of a set.
Yeah. I literally texted him at the beginning of this recording, and I'm like, what does your glass say? It appears to be a collector's cup.
I did not see that.
So what are we talking about?
Well, the other cliffhanger in season 2 is Chuck recording Jimmy admitting
Yes.
forging those documents. What do you think is going to happen with that?
I don't know, but he's a dick.
I actually loved watching Jimmy's freaking outburst at him. Oh, wait, is that after?
No, it's before.
Okay.
The very last seconds are he uncovers the tape recorder and it goes to end panel credits.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is the first stupid thing I thought is only because I'm obsessed with the movie Clue, and I can just hear Mr. Green saying point of order tape recorders are not visible evidence.
It is a classic.
Yes. Nick,
Probably one of the most quotable things of all the time.
And it's also a line that might pop up in the next season.
Kyle!
Well, that's
I said might. Am I?
So my initial...
And I might just, hate you.
Oh, just spicy. Settle down.
I mean, we know... Here's what we know, whether we've seen seasons 3 through 6 or not. Jimmy's not going to prison for this. It's that the rest of the show isn't Orange is the New Black, just with better Call
Maybe
Saul.
he talks his way out of prison.
I think he
Maybe.
talks his way out of going to prison.
I'm just kidding.
My next thought is, if Chuck was pretending this level of insanity, doesn't everything fall apart with why he's been gone from HHM? I think they're in a finger trap there together. The harder they pull, the more stuck they are together.
I love that theory and agree with it.
I told Kyle to stop reacting to things, so hopefully...
He's got a fork in his thigh right now.
Well, I will say, it's just supposed to, in my opinion, it goes to show you how scummy Chuck is, because he knew that the way to get Jimmy to confess was to pretty much make it look like he was on his deathbed, because he knew, Jimmy, he weaponized the fact that Jimmy actually cares about him, so that he could destroy Jimmy's career.
One of my favorite scenes of
Absolutely.
these 2 seasons is when Kim actually lectures Chuck and says, look, he loves you, he idolizes you, he does all these things. Is he always right? No. But would he do half of these things if you weren't the way you were with him? And
Well, actually, and to me, the best line of that whole speech, which I love that part, is when she's like, I feel sorry for him. I do. But you want to know what? I feel sorry for you. And she, really says it with that tone and nails it. And then they walk out of his house. And I was just like, oh. But then to some degree, I still don't even think that it just doesn't register with him because he's so one track with Jimmy.
he's made
Yeah,
up
I
his
think
it's
mind and he
late
won't
for
change
him.
it. Yeah.
It goes to show the lengths that Chuck will go to manipulate Jimmy's love, and that, he would walk into his house and everything would be covered in tinfoil, and Jimmy's never said to Chuck, I don't think that your disease isn't real. He's never made him feel like it wasn't. So that's just what made it so extra low to manipulate him to that level.
Yeah, it's
In
practical.
season 1, you learn when he's talking to Howard, all the stuff he does, he gets up at 4 a.m. to get Chuck's papers every day for 2 years.
He brings in his groceries, well, until he gets mad at him and he has Ernesto do it or whatever instead. But
It's emotional manipulation that almost strikes me as abusive.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Quite literally. Yeah, he's basically gaslighting him.
In
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things the show does so well is how they reveal the characters. Like we've already said, Howard comes off as this almost one-dimensional bad guy that as we get to know him more and more, we clearly see there's more to him and he's not that terrible. They do it with Chuck. It just goes so far the other direction, you almost forget. When we first meet Chuck and as we're first watching the show, he is this, you feel sorry for him. He's sick. He needs to be taken care of. You don't know what's wrong with him. He's just a recluse. And then he's just horrible. Again, he's just jealous of Jimmy. One of his mom's last words were Jimmy, and he didn't tell his brother. All he could think about was, why is she calling for him and not Chuck?
Yeah, he's very selfish. He's very immature in certain ways. I'd almost... Gosh, he almost comes off as a little narcissistic to me,
Yes, he does.
A little.
I was trying to be I was trying to be gentle about it, which I know is not usually my way, but...
Well, that's the irony. He's accusing Jimmy of that same narcissism, but he's clearly projecting what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. I think the thing that kills him is he knows that if Jimmy wanted to, he could be a better lawyer than him. The Sandpiper case, Chuck went through all those boxes and missed everything, and then Jimmy looked at the paper for 2 minutes talking to a client, and he instantly knew that this was wrong.
Because Jimmy has a better understanding of people. So it helps him find the missing pieces, whereas Chuck doesn't have those connections.
If they could readjust their relationship, they would actually be the perfect law team, because Chuck clearly has the technical knowledge. He is the law that he can just spit off the top of his brain.
Yeah, it's encyclopedic.
Whereas Jimmy is the one who understands the emotional component of the people and clients they represent. Mm-hmm. Whereas Chuck doesn't even he doesn't even seem to care about the law as it affects their clients. He only cares about the law as an entity of itself. If they got along, they would be like the perfect legal team. But he would never let that happen.
Well, I mean, briefly, like, you see it in season 1 when they're both working on the Sandpiper case. And they're like brilliant. Jimmy's out in the world doing stuff, and Chuck is like very focused on the legal stuff. And Jimmy obviously cares more about the elderly people because Chuck's trying to make it into this bigger and bigger and bigger case and give it to this big law firm. But they work so well together that Jimmy wanted to make his brother proud. He wouldn't do his normal cut corners things. He would stick by the book. Yeah. It's that rejection that is very much planted the seed of Saul Goodman. And like everything from season 2, like, I mean, it's exploding. Like, you see it, you know it. The moment he changed those documents, like, nothing's ever going to go back. They're never going to side with each other or see eye to eye.
Yeah, it's like beyond repairable at this point with the events that are taking place. So. And
I feel really bad for Ernesto for being stuck in between.
He's like, I miss the mailroom.
Ernesto's a mensch.
I don't blame him, and he's so nice. He's really just trying to, and there's moments where he's really just trying to help out, like, genuinely, both of them.
Well, Ernesto said Jimmy is his friend. That's why he helped Jimmy out with the copy die.
Which just goes to show you how much of a jerk Chuck is, too, because you get all those scenes where, like, Ernesto's trying his hardest, and he's like, actually, next time, Ernesto, I need it this way.
That's true.
Even when he goes into
I didn't even pay attention to that.
Even when he goes into HHM to talk to Kim, and she's actually being really nice to him, even though he's ruining her career. And he's like, coffee, and she's like, oh, no, thanks. And he goes, actually, no. Can you make it for me and make it with this?
Chuck is a straight-up diva.
Yeah, and like when you have a show with like Hector Salamanca and the cousins, and you hate Chuck more than them, like that is some amazing acting.
It's true. Yeah. It's very true. But also, in those scenes, like when everybody is together, you know, when it's like the scenes at HHM and it's Chuck versus Jimmy, you know, people like Kim, people like Howard, they can see this dynamic playing out in front of their eyes. I think that's what kind of pulls them towards one character versus the other. I think that's what kind of makes things really complicated for a character like Howard, who Howard has like this great respect for Chuck as the legal mind that he is. But he can see how patronizing he is towards Jimmy. So I enjoy looking at their relationship through the eyes of like Kim and Howard. And yeah.
And a lot of those interactions with Howard, once you see the end of season 1 and you learn that he wasn't always wanting to be against Jimmy, and you rewatch the first season again, there's a much more nuance in that actor's performance, whereas before you see him as a one-note villain. You can read more into like his facial expressions and stuff. You can tell that like he wants to say something, but he's like he wants to say Chuck doesn't want you. Like there's so much more, and like I definitely recommend watching the first season where it's a slow burn, but then you get these layers.
That's something that this is my second time watching seasons 1 and 2, and I've gone past. I've watched 3. This is my second run through of that. And Howard is like one of my favorite side characters.
Yeah, I like Howard.
Yeah, because he presents as like, he's so stoic. And but like every now and then you get these little cracks in him, like the conversation that he has with Kim when Kim is leaving HHM. And instead of leaving for Schweikart and Coakley, she's doing her solo practice. And you see something in Howard change where he's like, wow, like I have a really great respect for that. And then he kind of tells a story of like, yeah, I wanted to do that once, but you know, Dad had other ideas about it. And so you just kind of get this insight of like, Howard has followed this path his whole life. This is how he always knew it was going to come out. I don't know. I just think he's a really interesting character in that way.
Especially when you think about how long his dad died, and he's been working with Chuck his entire professional career. Yeah. And he just like Jimmy, he wants Chuck to be proud of him. He wants to be that.
Yes.
I mean, look at how much he bends over backwards for Chuck, who's in this situation that most people would be like, this is psychosomatic, like we don't have to deal with it. But he goes so far out of his way, just like Jimmy, to accommodate Chuck. And it's such an amazing character. And yeah, you watch the first season, he just seems one-dimensional, and you get so much. And all these character actors just completely blow it out of the park.
I mean, he's in the same place that Nacho is.
I remember now.
He's a made guy. You know, he came up on Dad's money and got put into the family business, which is law, and he's trapped. He can't say no. He could try to go to the board, but Chuck's got so much clout that he'd be like, this guy? And then they'd be like, oh, you're right, you're out. And then he'd have nothing.
And it's a vicious cycle for Chuck's, again, I'll use the word narcissism, because people are, including Howard, bending over backwards at every turn, which just serves to validate his overestimation of himself and why he thinks he deserves more. Entitlement.
Yeah. I'm just going to bring this around now and just say this is why the show is a holy smokes to me, because I mean, with Breaking Bad, one of the things that makes me love a show, well, it is the thing that makes me love a show the most, is the character development. And, dear Lord, I thought that was intense with Breaking Bad, but actually, in certain ways, I think the character development in Better Call Saul is it's more intricate. They're able to, because instead of building the whole world, we already know the world, so they can go really deep dive with some of these characters. And look at how long we've easily, just for 2 hours, been analyzing and dissecting these relationships. Again, the nuances between each character. This is why I think this show is holy smoke so good. Because look at how much conversation has come off of this. And it's only 2 seasons in. So
only 20 episodes.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and season 3 is really where it hits the ground running. You're getting so much more world building, because it's like they were testing the waters in these first 2 seasons to see if people would deal with the slow burn drama. And then season 3, they go 50% the Saul stuff and 50% Breaking Bad, bigger, larger storylines.
Right now it's less action-y, I will say, like quote-unquote action-y, but
you don't need those moments because
the character development is pretty intense, but like in a good way. So
I think that's why I'm enjoying this more than I enjoy Breaking Bad. They're both these amazing shows, and I think I prefer the character building more than those. I don't know. Sometimes Breaking Bad didn't give you time to breathe.
Yeah, it's like watching NYPD Blue and then watching like Hill Street Blues. They're both cop shows. NYPD Blue is in your face. And that's Breaking Bad. And then like Hill Street Blues, they would have like it would be like a month-long storyline that they're just having a conversation in a room.
Vince Gilligan, if you're listening, tweet at CPU Podcast and let us know if Nate's metaphor is actually
And then, hey, you know what? Stephen Bochco was the Vince Gilligan of that time.
Sure. Okay.
Also, just tweet at us because at least there's a lot of big X-Files fans too.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is the
We
truth.
love our crazy UFO spook 'em ups, right, Nick?
It's not all UFOs. There's other stuff.
That's why I said spook 'em ups.
Oh, okay.
It is crazy. I guess it's not that crazy, but when you think about the Bryan Cranston connection to X-Files with Vince Gilligan and then the Michael McKean.
And Tuco.
Pretty nice.
Yeah.
Oh, Tuco.
Because Tuco was in the El Chupacabra episode.
Yep.
Oh, that's one of the best ones.
That is one of the best ones.
They're all the best ones, Nicholas.
Yikes.
Okay, not season 9, but everything before.
Kyle, where are we?
Oh, anyway, since we're nearing the end of this, other than
people again, Nate with the audio.
That was for you.
No, I want them to know that you were reeling us back in.
I was literally reeling it in.
You're the one who cast the line out with Hill Street Blues.
That's true. You derailed us.
Well, I noticed that we didn't spend a lot of time talking about it. But someone mentions X-Files, and suddenly we break out the feather quill and parchment paper and start making love letters.
So, other than Gus Fring, are there any other Breaking Bad characters you're hoping will pop up season 3 or looking forward on?
Who's left?
I want
There's actually a lot.
Okay.
Walter White.
Yeah, right.
I want the backstory of that tortoise that, what's his face?
Tortuga.
But I just want to know more about the tortoise.
Oh, because, that guy is part of the Mexican cartel, which we're going to dive deep into.
Oh, does Danny Trejo come back?
Do we get to see more Danny Trejo?
That's always important. He's not answering, so the answer is yes.
Just see Kyle jab that fork into his thigh.
I mean, there's a lot of characters it could be. I don't want to give anything away or hint, but I mean, like, there's so many connections that other characters had. Like, Skinny Pete went to prison with Tuco. So if we see Tuco again, he's in prison with Skinny Pete. Like, you'd have to have Skinny Pete.
Get Skinny Pete's.
When Saul Goodman is introduced in Breaking Bad, he already knows the DEA agents.
That's true.
Like, there's a lot more than you would think. And it could go anywhere.
Of course, he's not coming from a perspective of somebody who's already watched it all.
No.
Yes.
Who needs to snipe at Kyle when Hillary's sitting right next to him? No, I don't know that I have specific requests. You're kind of actually hinting at all the stuff, so I'm looking.
She just really wants to see Gus.
But I also it's kind of like watching some of these other shows where they're telling it in a non-linear fashion. We're going back to the past. It's all about what's the journey to the destination. How do we get from point A to the point B that is the start of Breaking Bad when we know all the rest of the alphabet to that point? So
yeah, I'm just along for the ride.
I'm along for the ride. That's where I'm at. Yep.
I like all the parts. So I hope it just keeps on a-trucking. And it sounds like it's going to, so.
With trucks that might derails.
What are you going to be doing later?
I don't get
it. You're overthinking it.
I mean, and does anybody have any thoughts on what's going to happen with Gene from Omaha, where that storyline's going?
Absolutely no idea.
I am so intrigued. Like, every time they have those flash forwards with Gene, I feel like very tense about it. I feel very anxious about it. It's unsettling.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it doesn't happen, but I feel like he's gonna get found out at some point, even in Omaha as Gene at the Cinnabon.
Yeah, but like, is that found out from the cartel? Is that found out from the authorities? Like, who knows? That's why I'm always like, and you can tell he's always watching his back too.
The authorities,
his paranoia is boiling over. You get that part where he shuts himself out and he won't go through the door just because he's irrationally afraid of like the alarm going off.
And he carves Jimmy was here in the wall.
Yeah, it's like he's so terrified about going out, but at the same time he has to be that Saul Goodman. He has to let people know.
Like a calling card.
You know why the cage bird sings.
Nice.
Anything else anybody wants to add? Because I think that covers most of the first 2 seasons.
I just too like when they're in the credits in the beginning where they're playing the little theme song. There's always some cool like Saul Goodman, like in one of the openings, like just like his old business card is just like chilling. They're just those little touches to me are just they're so smart, and that's also kind of foreshadowy, but. You're not paying attention to it, so it's just like the opening of the show, but it's so smart. Everything is just so smart.
I agree. I also...
intro is that cool... it sounds like Memphis Blues, but I mean, it's just cool. Like, Breaking Bad has that, like, intense, rhythmic beginning, but, like, with Saul Goodman, you get that sweet, bluesy guitar, and it's, you're just like, this is going to be... What you're going to see is going to be really cool. Bottom line.
I also like that with both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, they're very, like, short but sweet intros. Like, give me more time for story. Like, not every show needs a full minute-long intro sequence. And while that can be really cool, I don't need that here. Let's just get to it.
Since we're talking about music, I also enjoy the strategic use of popular music here in Better Call Saul, similar to what was done in Breaking Bad. There always seems to be a punctuated moment for it, and while I don't remember any particular song this time, it's just so sparingly and strategically used that you can't help but notice it when it happens and appreciate it, so I like that a lot.
Okay, I think that about wraps it up. So, thank everybody, Kylie, Hillary, Julianne, Nick, Nate, and then I'll send it back to Kylie for the ending.
And thank you, Kyle, for moderating your first ever episode. Guys, how'd he do?
Woo woo!
Yay!
Well done.
Agreed. He did such a great job that I don't have much more to say other than let's roll the credits. Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point was produced by Back Pocket Productions, run by yours truly, the Chief Couch Potato, which is really another way of saying executively produced by me, Kylie Piette. My associate producers are Krista Pennington and Selene Rezmer. I edit this podcast, and our logo is by Rebecca Wallace. Our marketing graphic artist is Krista. Our theme song was written by Sarah Milbratz and sung by Sarah, Amy McDaniel, and Kels Rezmer. Kels played the keyboard, Ian McDonough played the bass, Christian Somerville played the guitar, and the whole shebang was engineered by Kyle Aspinall and Christian. We hail from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Please, if you like what you hear, take the time to rate us, give us stars, provide comments, or review us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Amazon are just a few of the places you can find us, but we're also on YouTube. We have our website. Otherwise, feel free to tell us how we're doing, what we should add, subtract, keep, or toss. You know how it goes. And if you have suggestions for shows we might consider, contact us at our website where we have a guest book, by email at couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com, our Facebook, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, or wherever you get your podcasts. Though, of course, we add new and old shows to chat about around the water cooler all the time, and always have new episodes coming down the pipe. Just listen to our intros. If you miss old episodes or want to know in general what shows we cover, just search for us. Find us wherever you do searchable things on the internet. Don't forget that exclamation point, or contact us via our website, our email, our social media accounts, and stay up on all the new events and episodes by our humble little podcast, Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point. Until the next time, all available seasons of Better Call Saul are available to stream on Netflix, our unofficial non-sponsor who apparently has all the AMC shows. It's cool. In the meantime, our Breaking Better panel will next reconvene very shortly. In fact, discuss seasons 3 and 4 of Better Call Saul and part 5 of this series very shortly, and moderated by Kyle once again. So until next time, until next episode, new episodes are published every Wednesday. Keep listening, keep watching, stay tuned.
Bye.
Bye-bye.